This meeting is being recorded.
Just as we're getting started, I just want to, a couple of things, folks in the room, if you could try to speak up. The green boxes, the lights in the ceiling are the ceiling mics. I'll also remind everyone that that means the room generally as a whole is mic'd, and anything you say, even if you think it is a side comment, is being broadcast on the internet and recorded for posterity. For folks online, I hope you can see us and hear us. Certainly can try to raise your hand. I'll have it on my phone. What it does mean though is that we can't see the chat in the room. It's not something that we're able to really interact with. So if you want to raise your hand, we can call on folks if you'd like to participate. It's a much easier system and allows us everyone to do it together. Daniel, who has it on his computer and not on the big screen, shared, I believe it's a sign-in sheet.
Yes, it is.
So with those announcements, I will turn it back over to Daniel to keep the meeting going.
Yeah, I just wanted, since there are a few folks here in the room, I just wanted to go around the room and make sure we know everybody's name, because we can see your names on Zoom. So I introduce myself, I'm Daniel.
Isaac Daniel Asukan, Executive Committee in Soccer Club.
Tom Fox, City of New York. Sally Curtis, Village Community Boathouse.
And Deborah Clearman, Village Community Boathouse.
Robert Atterbury, Executive Vice President, Hudson River Park Trust.
I'm Tammy Meltzer. I'm currently Vice Chair of the Advisory Council. I'm also currently Chair of Hatton Community Board 1. And I think that means that next month, pending something that I don't know, I'll end up being Chair of the Advisory Committee because we rotate. And it's CB1's turn. Apparently.
Cheryl Herman, Senior Director of Integrated Media, Hudson River Park Trust. I'll shut the door.
Paul Allen, Chelsea Paris.
Albert Taylor, 300 West 20th, or excuse me, Council of Chelsea Block Associations.
Martin Sweeney, Downtown Boathouse and Executive.
This is a Bay Ridge 95th Street bound all local train. The next stop is DeKalb Avenue.
Hi, everybody. Jeffrey LaPrantois, the Nat Community Board 4, former member of the Advisory Council. Resigned with news coming of the new CB4 appointee, hopefully in short order.
And your actual title in this room?
Now I have been appointed by the governor to the board of Hudson River Park Trust, hence my reasoning for having to resign. So I'm excited to continue my service with and for the park, just in a different capacity. Well, excited for that.
And great, everybody who has joined us online, please use the link to sign in for the digital attendance sheet. If you haven't done so already, and you just joined us late, I will go ahead and put it in one more time, which I just did. If you receive the agenda, which I can also maybe share with you, hopefully you received it via email, because I actually don't have a PDF. I can actually put the Microsoft Word in there for a second, but there were minutes included, abbreviated, bullet-pointed minutes. And do I have a motion to approve the January 2024 minutes?
Yes.
Second. Without objection, I would like to approve the January 2024 minutes. And it should be written that it was approved without any objection. Now we're going to move on to membership. Now, membership, you know, the executive committee got a little bit of a late start on it. And I know that many folks received a letter for renewal just about a month ago or so. And not everyone has had time to reapply. But we just want to let you know that you're not going to lose your spot. If you could just get us your application in. If you haven't received an application to renew, go ahead and reach out to Robert or to me, and we'll make sure that happens. But I know there's some organizations that take a little bit more time to be able to fill it out, like West Village Houses. Don't worry, we've got you covered. Just do the best you can to get the applications in. We haven't voted on the extension, but I'm hoping that by the time we hold our next meeting in April, that we will have all the applications in. There will be 1 to 2 openings. So we are looking for new members for the advisory council, and in our bylaws, you'll see how we define what's the best kind of member. It's also written in a letter that was sent to everyone. And it's also in the agenda that you can actually click the link and you can reread that letter as well. But it should be an organization that has some kind of interest in the park, that is nearby, it's a neighborhood like a block association. And our bylaws limit the amount of tenants that can be members on the advisory council. And I do believe that we're full up right now with the 8 or the 9. So we're really looking for community organizations. If you know you do not want to reapply for the AC membership, because we've had some difficulty reaching some of you. If we don't hear from you by April, we'll assume that you're going to vacate your seat. So I don't know if there's anything else anybody else from the executive committee wants to add, maybe that I forgot. Jeffrey, anything I forgot?
Sounds about right.
Tammy, anything to add?
I think we're good. I think my basic point is all of us are here. All of us should try and think of one or two that, I mean, the role of the advisory council is that you help bring in neighbors. So think widely, think expansively, and dial for fun.
Yes, go ahead.
I'd like us not to think too parochially. I don't think geographic proximity is a primary rationale for membership. I think interest in the park. I live in Greenville, and I would have tried. That's a 40-year history. Probably civic organizations that have parks and open space and waterfront and maritime should be eligible for members, whether they're on Park Avenue or other places. We've been a member of it.
You bring up a good point because we're moving the river project. And I always get this wrong, it's Historic Society, the North River.
Jeffrey.
I think also, and he's also no longer with us, so yes, I agree, Tom, and I think that we also have, this will be Tammy's job, but we're gonna have to elections for the executive committee, and so that will go. Bylaw, that any member of the advisory council is also approved by. Yeah, that's correct.
Um,
Good.
I would just add on for membership. I think this is certainly a place where some of our DEI conversations that Michael Reagan had led us through before. It's certainly a place that I think the advisory council should be considering. I'd also put in, certainly the River Project. Jeff has a lot of partner groups that we work with on both science and education departments, and we'd certainly love to have some of those voices included for consideration, given it's sort of the focus of the trust on those topics. We're certainly happy to talk to folks offline about some outreach or perhaps some possible names.
So I in the chat, I put a link to the letter. In that letter is a link to the form to apply, so please distribute it. And hopefully we'll get additional applications to start the process a little later. So our agenda is it's kind of a quick one today. We're going to kind of high level things. I'm gonna hand it over to Robert, but before I do, we would like to have a little social gathering after this at around 7:15. So we're gonna have about an hour of our business session, and then at 7:15 we're gonna walk over to Harlem Hop. So if there's anybody online that's close by, please know that we're gonna walk about 50 yards down and have a belated social gathering. It's certainly better weather today than it was on February 12th. So, which was the big snowstorm. So it's good to see
Goodbye to
everybody.
Daniel, and congratulations to Jeffrey at the same time.
And
Yeah.
Tammy as
Also
well.
mechanic.
Yeah.
Also to Tammy.
I don't know if that's a congratulations, Norma. Sorry.
The group that is used to congrats and condolences in
Yeah.
one.
I was kind of thinking like, I could like have Jeffrey back there to help, and I'm a little concerned.
It's not an easy.
And speaking of not an easy spot, the Hudson River Park Trust. I'm just kidding.
That was really fun.
All right. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We are jumping right in today, and we have a lot. Winter is usually a quieter period in the park, but I think particularly for this time, we have a lot to cover. So first up, I want to highlight for folks and I will ask Rob to chime in on maybe some of these also. We have a wide range of seasonal positions open. Obviously, as folks know in the park business, our teams grow enormously in the high season. If you look outside today, you'll see why with full pathways and lots of folks. We have a huge range of folks that we're in the process of hiring right now. That is everything from seasonal folks on our science teams, folks on our events teams, helping run public programs, teams on Rob's teams with horticulture and facilities and others. And Rob, do you want to chime in with any, you have any of the descriptions or anything you want to add to that?
So we're currently hiring for an assistant director of horticulture. Our longtime assistant or director there, Peter Kelly, retired last month. In facilities, we're looking for tradesmen. So anyone with approximately 10 years of experience, tradesmen, plumbing, electrical, mechanical. We're also looking for a mechanic there. We're actually doing pretty good on the gardener seasonal front. We pretty much have a full lid, and folks will start coming on in the next month and a half. And we have another big retirement coming up. Our assistant director for maintenance is retiring next month. He started with the trust, Mangru. Started with the trust, well, before the trust, he started with the conservancy as a contractor and then moved to the trust. So he's been at the location here, since the mid-90s, I think. So yeah. So we'll be looking to backfill that position at some point too. That's a big one.
And certainly, I know some of our community boards and others have job listing boards and what have you. So I shared the link. We'd love folks help spread the word in particular. I'm going to jump into now some design and construction updates to carry us through. So at Gansevoort, folks see heavy in use. We are entering our first warm season with it. So we're certainly learning how it works, how people work in the space, what other changes or modifications may be necessary to make sure it is continues to be as successful as we've seen it already be. We are waiting right now for a temporary certificate of occupancy for the restroom and concession building and or finishing up some of the building finishes. We're going to also be doing some of our final plantings and other pieces soon. And we also see there are some minor pieces. There's broken boards and others that we are working our way through right now. At the science playground, our science playground, if folks haven't been down there, open since our last meeting. It is spectacular. We have seen, we opened it in late January with 2 third grade classes. If anyone has opened a playground and sent 2 screaming classes of third graders into it, it was a really good day to be in the parks business, a reminder of why we do what we do. A really great one. I do want to give a special shout out to Friends, which championed the project and ran the capital campaign, as well as Borough President Mark Levine, Councilman Maricruz Marte, and the former council speaker who helped fund it. It is a huge success, a smashing success. We have some plantings coming up for it. We'll also be turning on the spray/fog plume feature coming up when we do our annual watering of the park, when we turn on all our water. There were just 2 things I will note on the side. There were kind of 2 things that came up recently since our last meeting. One, the safety surface, like many of our turfs, froze for part of February. It also happened to go inside with spring break. That happens, the rubber crumb, which is supposed to be soft and spongy, when it gets water in it, it becomes rubber crumb suspended in ice. It happens to all our turfs. It is part of the process. We had some folks who jumped the fence, compacting what would otherwise be slush. So if you ever picked up a snowball and squeezed it, it became an ice ball instead of a slush ball. The more folks came on it, the more it compacted and the longer it took to melt. So it was unfortunately down for a couple days during spring break. It is common in it. We prefer kids to fall on spongy rubber crumb rather than ice. It's a reminder of when things are closed and gates are locked. We'd strongly remind everyone that is the first sign that something is unsafe. You should not go in. Don't jump our fences. We had one of our key sports leagues boosting kids up and over a fence for one of our sports field that was locked, and having their coach from the sidewalk outside of it. And we had to have some conversations about what locked fences mean for folks. moving on, the estuarium, we're continuing to work with the design team on some of the mechanical pieces, some design elements, and look forward to trying to coming back to folks with updates in the coming months. We're sort of in a little bit of an iterative page, some value engineering, making sure we're trying to do it as a cost effective as we can, making sure that the programming layout, all that works. For 29th to 44th Street or 46th Street, our board approved the selection of Marvel Architects. So this is, again, a funded project. We are underway with it. Our board approved Marvel Architects right now to lead the landscape and esplanade design. We are going to be meeting with Marvel shortly to kick off the project with it and start to orient them to the space and very complicated series of land use pieces that go along with it. We will then be following up as we do with all of our projects. We'll bring Marvel to the community board and to do some stakeholder outreach and do some our engagement meetings as we start that planning process. We want to make sure that, particularly for this one, they have a good sense of what it is they're looking at, so they are able to receive some of those initial comments right off the bat. Up at Pier 97, over the winter, as I noted, I think at the last meeting, we have some limited public access during construction. It is growing. It's the entire south edge, and in particular, all the way to the far western end. I believe also the sports turf may have recently opened as well. And we are aiming to open the remaining spaces, Belvedere Overlook Playground, this spring. Construction on the restroom and maintenance building are progressing and will be finished later this year. We'll be able to open the bulk of the pier before then. If folks haven't gone up, it is really spectacular. We've already started to see some really folks use it. We got one of our first love thank you notes for it already into our inbox. So always a nice one to do. Pier 45 boardwalk repair. As I reported before, heavy use. The boardwalk had not been replaced since the park was originally constructed. It was, I think, over 20 years old for the wood decking, which for the amount of use our decks get is extraordinary. We are in the middle of the replacement at this point. They started with the far western end, and we'll be doing that before moving to the long boardwalk along the south edge of the pier. Work is going well, I'm told. Should be completed by the end of May, perhaps early June of this year. But it's happening. I don't have the list, but I'm told the construction team has been entertained by what they have found under the boards. And what else we've got through the
I don't think I want to know.
Yeah, 20 years of treasures, I think is the right phrase there. At Pier 25, as we reported last fall, we're undertaking some repairs and improvements to the playground. This is part of maintenance, one of our water features. There was an underground pipe that had broken, and are taking the opportunity to do some resurfacing of it. Construction is moving along. I believe the swing areas of the playground should be reopening shortly, which had a resurfacing. They get worn under the swings with the remainder to follow in the coming months. Some of this stuff in particular here is weather dependent work. So we're going to see a boom this spring as it gets temperatures consistently over 50 degrees, allow us to do some of the surfacing work around the park. Welcome, council member. We recently, over the winter, in January, we hosted our annual estuarine sanctuary management plan. This is a requirement of the act that we do, and as part of our management of the estuarine sanctuary. So we have a group of technical experts who help advise us on the range of pieces that we do for it, including our several internal research projects. We got them actually together here for a full day of pieces. We had our visiting scholars, who we had again over a dozen last year, who did research throughout the park, did presentations on the research that they did to help share and help build some of that information. Some of the advisory council members attended. And talked about some of the upcoming projects we have. We also worked with our team to look at, and I'll mention this a little bit later. We have an upcoming project that was funded by Congressman Nadler, Senators Schumer and Gillibrand, as well as Nadler, for research here at Gansevoort. We also had a meeting to discuss with our technical advisory committee, discuss what that research scope would look like, and try to get some feedback as we launch into it. This year was our first year of winter programming here in Discovery Tank. It's the first time we've had an indoor space that of this size and scale. We've been able to really do it. Pier 84 classroom, it just can't fit, frankly, a full class worth of people. And so we've had over 77% of our groups come from Title I schools. We've had a world of new programming in particular. We've been learning, introducing hands-on pieces inside for our field trip programs. I sent with everyone as part of the advisory council, I sent you a flyer for all of our upcoming spring programs, including some new ones. So I hope you guys will all share that. Slots are filling up, particularly for it. I will also note with this, this year we are moving Submerge, a marine science festival. That's our STEAM festival that is focused around marine science that is hosted at Pier 84. It is usually we've held it in the fall, but one of the things we've heard back over the years from teachers is that the fall season is actually a really difficult time to be able to do field trips, that as schools are just starting, it can be challenging. Last year, we had over 1,000 kids signed up for what turned out to be the day of great flooding in I believe it was September, when the city shut down, and so we weren't able to host them. The previous year, we did have 1,000 kids. So this year, we're actually jumping it up into what I would like to call prime field trip season in May. But we have, I believe, over 35 exhibitors already signed up who will be part of it, and field trips slots for that Friday, May 17th, are filling up quickly. So if you have schools or interested or schools you want to share our flyer with, please make sure to flag it for folks. It is certainly a hot one. Of course, that Saturday is open to the public, and so everyone is welcome there. And if folks aren't able to make it to the Friday one as part of a field trip program, we certainly welcome everyone to come learn, bring their classes through, or come learn as individuals on Saturday. It is a lot of work to do this in a short period of time. So I want to give a shout out to our River Project team and our public programs team who has been doing a lot to try to pull it off, frankly, again, at the end of last season, beginning of this season. With that, we've also, as I mentioned before, we have previously had an allocation from Senator Schumer, Gillibrand with Congressman Nadler for $750,000 for research at Genswort. And I believe I wrote this prior to the passing of the most recent appropriations bill, which I think has now been signed because the federal government has not shut down, which included an additional $963,000 for habitat enhancement and research. This is frankly a really big investment for us. We're really excited to be able to do it. We will have to, these things particularly, the money flows through NOAA. So we will work with them to start shipping the project. We'll go back to our TAC on exactly what it is. But I want to give a big shout out to Congressman Nadler for allocating the money, and a note of appreciation for it as we launch into the next piece of it. I'll pause there for.
Thank you, Robert. I think there might be some questions. Let's see if there's any questions.
And before we go with questions, sorry, Mary, if you haven't signed in, please raise your hand and we'll get you the sign-in sheet. It's floating around somewhere. Okay, thank you.
Well, since you mentioned, Mr. Nadler, a year or so back, I heard there was gonna be some state that was kind of up in the air when you get it, how much exactly.
Yeah.
And if there'd be limitations on what you could do. You have any news on
Yeah, so we, Congressman Nadler, and I believe that was the awarded in 2022, allocated $1 million for pedestrian safety and security. It was, we were working with HUD on sort of what the shape of the project is. I believe we have sort of submitted a project scope, and it's going to be focused largely around the area around Pier 40, including some railings, I believe some paving, some adjustments to some of the streetscape filter and things like that. As sort of, I think, the project scope that worked best within HUD restrictions. It was a bit of a challenge to navigate that piece where we didn't end up having to spend a lot of money on other consultants and things.
In that area, I'm going to copy of trust report. Talking about signs, you might park visitors or something where it ended with, but we have a significant number of.
Yes. So you'll notice that.
You calling it a typo? Is that?
No, he's calling out, there was a phrase that I changed. I wrote this, I was in late on Friday, you all got it. I wrote a significant number of people crossing the railings, and I have since edited the report, and the updated version that I sent you has changed that sentence to say repeated crossings, because we actually don't have specific numbers on it. We do know places in the park where we are putting, and this is later in here, we are putting signs reminding folks not to cross the railings, for that provides a suicide helpline for it. As I mentioned earlier, the railing or a locked fence is your first sign not to enter something. But we wanted to put some additional reminders in orange to remind folks of the danger of it. There are places we know that people do repeatedly cross it, to the end of Pier 45, the place where you can go and see it by the city dock. Down in Tribeca, you'll see folks climbing up on some of the bollards and putting themselves in unsafe situations. And so we are rolling out some additional signs, but I have since edited significant numbers to be repeated.
I got it early.
So we actually have, we talked about this at a meeting last fall. We have increased the number of ladders. We've also increased the number of life rings, in particular. Ladders can, and we've done it, and I think Chris is here for it. Ladders can be also an invitation, folks who get down in the way that life rings, having sure we have a life rings. If there is an accidental, someone accidentally enters the water, we are able to do it. We certainly are. PEP has saved people. Last fall, I've reported it on it, but yes, it is. Ladders themselves can be a mixed one in the way that life rings are better. Chris, do you have anything you want to add on that?
No, I think that's it. You know, we've expanded our life rings as the park's grown. We filled in places where we were missing. We've expanded to the, northern parts of the park. The ladders that come up before, we looked at it, we do have ladders, but our concern has always been like a seawall mounted ladder would be, as much as it would be helpful to someone, it would be an attraction for someone to think, I can get out now. And that would, think some of the only hesitations people may have from jumping in the water sometime is how they will get out, so.
Okay. I have one question about that one night before we go speak.
Yep, and actually I will add just on Chris one, sorry, on this one, we have been with, as part of our expansion of our life rings, and repair of our easy docks and others, is a DE in part be funded by a DEC grant, which folks here have asked about before. It is part of a piece that we are moving forward.
Great. It says you're gonna bring stakeholders. Please consider us a stakeholder in the community. But it would be great if the advisory council had a meeting, like, a briefing. And how are you treating the illegal bus parking in front of Pier 79? Is that being designed into the park? Or those guys are trying to get rid of it?
So I can't speak to what design is.
Okay.
That is, we have hired designers to enter into a conversation. That is certainly, the area in front of 79 is certainly a design challenge. It involves interactions with other agencies, in particular, EDC, who holds the lease for the facility and for the operator there. So it is certainly something that we are going to be looking at. It is something we have repeatedly raised, both from as a part of the request from the advisory council, as well as some of our own folks. We've repeatedly spoken to EDC and to try to see what can be done there, and what can be done to improve that situation or enforcement. It is certainly something that is on our radar.
So the design could improve that area.
So design, and so we are looking over that area. It is certainly, will be a conversation as part of the 29 to 44th Street zone. But when I said earlier, right, like there's a lot of really complicated uses there in there. Pier 79 is certainly high on that list. There's also the privately owned Pier 78, which of course, as folks may not know, has an easement across, or maybe we have the easement across the frontage.
Yeah.
So it is a complicated piece.
On the very top.
Of course. Tracy.
I have a question. Since you mentioned locked fences, locked gates, we got an email yesterday from a constituent who was reminding us that we neglected to answer her question in March of 2020 about a locked I know. You know,
Yeah,
I
make this stuff
apologize if she's in the room. There were other things happening that month.
March
But-
2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She wrote yesterday. Um, about whether there's a, open pedestrian area around Pier 40. She said there was, on the southwest corner was a locked gate that is almost never open.
So it is, I think that may have been from a period in which there was significant construction happening on the piles of Pier 40. So the perimeter walk of Pier 40 is open
Okay, well.
and has
I
been
will
for
report
the
that.
2 years that I have been working.
Like, since you mentioned locked fences, like.
Yeah, that sounds like it may have come from a period in which the barges were doing, what they were a significant amount of work there at that,
Right.
back in the day, back in time, so.
I have a question about the NOAA, if that's what it is, research. Because as Board One knows, I mean, there's governors, everybody seems to be doing climate research these days. And so how do you make sure you're not duplicating or, you know, like, I'm not the biggest fan of some of the things going on government side. But there are others doing it too. So how do you think about all that?
Definitely. So we have our estuarine sanctuary management plan, which sort of lays out our specific goals. Ours are really about marine science in the estuarine sanctuary,
Okay.
sanctuary life, that is the habitat with oysters and others.
Are
There
we sure
is.
nobody else is doing that exactly? We just don't know.
Let me get into my sentence here. So we have with our estuarine sanctuary management plan, we have our technical advisory committee, which is made up of folks in the region, including Hudson River Foundation, folks from Governor's Island, a bunch of Billion Oyster Project, a range of other scientific folks from the region, as people from Stony Brook, from different CUNY representatives doing scientific research throughout the region who work with us to help give us advice on it. And I will say, particularly in this field, actually having multiple sites doing similar work is actually a benefit, because what we are doing is we're building upon each other under slightly different circumstances and in a greater way to build the cumulative amount of knowledge that we have from it. Particularly with our oysters and with our current NOAA grant, we are really excited for this, because what is allowing us to do research itself is very hard to fund. We've often been able to get capital or construction money like Tribeca for it, or GAM support, which put oysters in, but did not come out with money to do the research on the 3 years, sort of 3-4 years afterwards. We are actually working with a bunch of our partners to come up with new ways of doing the same monitoring. So lots of folks who have oysters in the water. There are many different ways of doing monitoring. The most common one is to reach down, pull up one of the features, put them onto the deck of a barge, to count, take photos of it, and then count the photos of it and do sampling. That is incredibly disruptive to the feature and may actually be harming its ability to grow and the life that we see gather on it. So we are trialing, as part of this research, one of the pieces that we're trying to advance is working with Chen Lab, which is based out of SUNY Stony Brook, what is called a clear water box, in which we send divers down who do essentially the same thing of the photos, but underwater, without disrupting the feature. And so we are working with our technical advisory committee and scientific folks from the region on sort of shaping that, and then we'll hopefully be sharing our research and any new research techniques we're able to help develop with that same community.
Publish before they do.
Well, and Rob, do you have?
No, that was great. That was great. And I just to echo the point, like doing more research better, and in particular, conditions are always different, no matter where you go in the estuary. And so, what might work here won't work off of Governor's Island. I think the Trust has done an incredible job of involving academic researchers from some major universities to involve themselves, and their work is going to result in peer-reviewed publications. I don't think the Governor's Island, not BOP work, but the Governor's Island climate exchange stuff, it's not at that level yet. Maybe in the future, but they're not there yet.
So my one comment to tag to Gail is your partners are their partners, because Stony Brook is the is the institution, core institution. So keep that in mind when we're looking at partners. Wearing just my AC hat, not my CB1 hat, although they both sit on the same head, to make sure that once they are up and running, we're not diluting the work, but augmenting to the work that's being done.
In particularly with that, say like the Chen Lab, there is been a long running DNA study along the Hudson River. They actually came up with some ways to standardize the data. So we're actually working with them to standardize years of our existing data so that we are adding to there is a body of information that folks can do research on the future that is consistent across the way. We also have, and I don't know if it's actually in this report, but I had mentioned it before. One of the things that our River Project team has been doing a lot of, and we are actually incredibly proud of, because it's been a significant amount of work, we are actually really significantly growing our research program with CUNY and the CUNY Office of Research for it. Last year, they were able to give us a grant in which we then use to select folks to do science in the park. So we work with them and their research team to fund specific research in the park using their professors, who then work with students to do the research. So we're both supporting CUNY goals, it's local New York City students, and it's two public institutions really working together to advance that. This year, we're excited to help grow that and are trying to keep pushing that forward, because we think that interlocking between the SUNY research teams and ours is really a valuable one, and it meets a lot of our goals, including engaging some disadvantaged communities.
While we're on the estuary route, last year when we brought up the thermal discharges from Hudson, trust spoke about monitoring. And I wanted to know, have you installed any monitoring equipment? Is there monitoring going on? Is that information available?
So we actually brought this up at the last meeting, which I think maybe you missed. So we did, what we did is we worked, our River Project team worked, and we both got the information from SUNY, from Pier 98. We have our RICOS monitoring stations in the park. Don't put me on the spot exactly on which locations. We have our 2 RICOS monitoring stations in the park, which generate continuous water quality data. And then we put water temperature sensors at, I believe it was 3 additional locations. Don't quote me, may have been 4 locations in the park. We took all of that data. So those similarly created near continuous data. They took a temperature sensor every couple of minutes. And we actually took this to our TAC. So we put on the graph, we shared our data, we reviewed it with our technical advisory committee, and the consensus, as far as I'm aware, was that the water temperature throughout the park, although there are some variations here or there was not a consistent pattern in any way, other than that water temperature moves as it's moving in and out of the Hudson with it. Rob, you were, I think, at that. Does that sound? It was not statistically significantly different from any one piece at any point. I think if I remember correctly, the pattern that they identified the most, although again, it was so minor that it was not significant, was that I think that it's actually the Tribeca area was warmer than some of the areas in the park.
So even during the summer when they're doing their discharges over 90 degrees, it's thermally okay, 98, 98?
So there is, the question was, is there a difference within the park?
Right.
Whether or not as we said when we discussed this last year, whether or not specifically Pier 98 is of it, that is a question for DEC, which permits discharges.
So the trust doesn't say.
So our question was, is there significant temperature differences throughout the park, and whether or not that has an impact on our science? The investigation of specific Pier 98 impacts or all of that is what we would say, particularly in regards to a speedies permit, we would defer to DEC, the regulatory agency that both regulates our work in the sanctuary, manages sanctuary's work, environmental pieces statewide.
Right.
So there was a question here, and I said this back then, and I will say it again. The trust goal here is we are not here to second guess or check DEC's homework on any of these pieces. That is not our role. They are our own regulator. So we are, our target was not, are we doing research on Pier 98? That was not our research question. It was not the research question we pursued. Our question was, are there significant temperature variations and differences throughout the park that could have an impact on this marine sanctuary? And for that, we got an answer.
I really like the big football saying trust but verify. I think it was nuclear weapons, trust but verify. It's just a thought. You should trust but verify.
Okay, can I keep moving? I got more reports. Okay,
Public program.
public programs up next. We are putting our finishing touches on our 2024 season. We will have some of our key ones return, some new surprises. Andrew's not here, so I'll tell you, I think there might be something with unicycles and a unicycle festival coming to Pier 76. Very exciting. I'll let you all know when I have more information. Don't break any news. I'm confirming nothing. And we are continuing to work on, say, like old staples like Healthy on the Hudson and others to bring back. I expect probably by our next meeting or but certainly by the May meeting, we'll have a full briefing for you on our exciting season programming. We're changing some things around this year. This is also on the agenda and we can talk about it now or later, but it was good timing. We have been meeting with Sailforth 250, also as known as OpSail. So Sailforth 250 is a multi-state, high-profile international tall ship and government project formed to celebrate the 250th anniversary birthday of the United States. Folks may remember they've done these in before. The last time the park was in this frankly significantly different condition. There was a lot less park and a lot more abandoned pier, I believe, at the time. It is in 2026, over July 4th. It is, and I apologize to both Rob and Chris McGann for this, it is immediately after Pride for us, as well as for 4th of July, that long weekend, along with Fleet Week, here on the Hudson River. It is going to be essentially what I would consider a park-wide festival, using from top to bottom with it, including what will be America's 250th anniversary with I think this is the nation's largest celebration of fireworks here on the Hudson River on it. As well as I think 30+ tall ships and other boats tied up in basically every place that we could will be able to possibly fit them, including some creative ones. It is, I will say, every time I look at the list of things that I'm working with them on, it boggles my mind. It is going to be an enormous amount of work between here and there. It is also really exciting to be able to showcase it all and have the park featured as part of it. It is going to take over, I think, largely the entire harbor, but here in Hudson River Park is certainly, given our position in central Manhattan, that's going to be, I think, the hot spot.
Last one was 1976.
Uh,
There was a,
2012.
there was another one?
Yeah.
We're 1812, yeah. Yeah.
76.
But 200 was 50 years ago. That's really scary.
50 years ago, 225.
Should we do something
12.
25 years ago also?
I think,
Yeah.
25 years ago.
2000, OpSail.
OpSail, yeah.
The only
So-
reason why I think I remember is.
So Mary, I don't know if you have anything. I know some folks here have been talking, Mary, you have asked about, you have been
Well,
interested in.
that's what, yeah, and Tom Fox and Captain Serpent, Caroline and I. Namely about where can they possibly. And especially on the Hudson where the piers haven't been used commercially anymore, there's gonna be problems.
Yeah.
And tall ships by their nature have deep keels, so that's a mess, and so.
Yeah, and we are, that is a problem we are actively engaged with them on. If there are design considerations or pieces for. We are talking to them. There are a world of regulatory issues and problems. It's certainly 18 feet deep requires things like dredging and others. And so where and how and what is a discussion that we are having directly with them and will certainly need to have ultimately with.
Is it this July 4th?
No, it is 2026.
Oh, seriously?
It is 2026, and yet it is still.
It's just about.
We are behind the ball on planning for it, but we are actively working with them. I think I have a tour with them on Friday to do the second one of my tours, in which we are talking about various spaces and events and all the pieces that go into something that is going to be a park-wide festival. Yeah. Tracy, and then over here.
Given the scope of that, does it make sense to have a little task force made up of community members to help you?
So I think you guys are on whatever, they have their own.
It's on the maritime side, but.
Okay.
We are on, there's one piece, I think they are still structuring their plans, pretty significantly, so, we certainly will be encouraging them to, do cast a wider net.
I'm just saying.
To cast a wider net with their engagement.
If that's helpful.
Stubborn support with the department, they're doing anything in the estuary to make sure that she works with us in advance, so that would be great. I mean, not me personally, but.
Well, if there's a cost associated with some of this dredging, is that coming from the federal government?
And the thought would be there are several areas around the city, Staten Island, Brooklyn River Park, Hudson River Park. And we would focus on the areas that are designated for maritime use in those particular parks, so that the park would benefit in the long run by having areas that would be able to accept ships for a little while, and perhaps we could work it into a long-term maintenance regime so that things like this could happen in the future. But that's an establishment. But just specific areas like 26, 97, where there's supposed to be a storm.
I don't know if he's really reached out to state electeds. I know he's talked to the mayor's office and Chris O'Brien. I have.
Okay, great.
And Brooklyn Bridge Park Corporation is considering Pier 1 and South Street Seaport is considering Pier 17, so there's a bracket both sides of the Brooklyn Bridge with tall ships. And then Staten Island, they're trying to get each of boroughs involved, as well as New Jersey.
Okay, on that one, I'm gonna keep moving, I still have a couple more pages, guys.
On
Oh,
events,
sorry.
on events, will there be a modern dance festival in June in the Chelsea Lawn Bowl?
So we are, this year we are, with moving some, we are moving the dance festival back. I will also, be honest on this one, we are reevaluating how we present the dance festival. In particular, the cost of the dance festival, has grown significantly over the years, to produce, and the amount of folks we're able to reach, or the outreach we're able to do with it, has, not necessarily kept up with that. So it is something that we are sort of actively looking at. We are targeting the fall for hopefully something, but we haven't quite figured out exactly what form it's going to take. We've been reevaluating sort of how we put on the dance.
It's a wonderful thing, but it's very frustrating that it hasn't taken off more. It just,
This past year, we were really hopeful and we put a lot of effort into trying to help spread the word in advance. And then if folks remember, the first day had to be canceled because it was one of the days of smoke. And then the second day was clear enough. So clear enough to safely hold the event. Not sure it was clear enough for everyone who had just been exposed to several days of orange skies to come out, and then got rained out halfway through. So we got an hour of the 2-hour performance in. So Mr. Botcher. Council member? Oh, there you
Hi, great to see everyone.
You need to turn your volume. Please wait 1 second.
That was pretty high
go.
already.
All right, let me try. Can we hear you now, Eric? Can you say something?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
little more.
A little better?
Yes.
Great. Hi, everyone. Just wanted to pop in as a citizen of Chelsea and a user of the park to get an update. Really appreciate all the great work that you're doing, everyone. And also wanted to give just a quick update, unless you've already done it, about shore power for the cruise ships. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, great. So, and you probably know this, Robert, the big thing that we're waiting on is that the Economic Development Corporation is waiting on is a letter from Con Edison telling them that they can proceed with the capital plan for electrifying the cruise terminal with the current electrical capacity without having to build a new substation. That this project, the grid can accommodate 13 megawatts without a new substation. That would be great news if we get that from Con Ed. If they say that this requires a new substation, it's a whole nother level of capital expense and a whole nother level of timeline. But what would happen then is if we get the go-ahead to move ahead with capital planning, is that sometime next year, likely, the RFP could come together to put the project out there. Under the best of circumstances, we're years away of having those crews, that shore power made available to the cruise ships. What the legislation that we passed, that the city council passed last week says, the council member Aviles, who represents West Red Hook, her legislation that I co-sponsored says that when shore power is available, the ships must use it. And so now our charge is to get the shore power installed as soon as possible. It will be very expensive. We are going to need the city administration and perhaps other sources to help fund it. But I think it's very important that we move full speed ahead and prioritize it. I want to thank Community Board 4 and everyone else who's weighed in on the need for it. We're just going to have to make sure that it's top of mind and that we move forward as quickly as possible without wasting any weeks or months in the process. So that's just a quick update I wanted to give.
Thank you, Councilmember. I'm gonna keep plowing ahead because I know we're running out of time here, so I'm gonna try to move a little snappy here. Field permits, and I know it's a topic that is certainly close to many of folks on the advisory council's hearts. This season is our first season with our first spring season with Gansevoort Peninsula being open, and when combined with the return of the renovated Chelsea Waterside Park has led and the renovation of rooftop field number 2 last year. We have greatly expanded the number of hours that we're able to offer permittees as well as a number of permittees. Field permitting is a very difficult job involving a very complicated Tetris of kids and or uses and sports on the right field in the right time with the right group of people for the right size. And we have somewhere between, I think we last calculated, 5 to 7 times the number of requests for field hours as we have actual field hours within the windows people ask for. So there we have some time and space dimensional issues as well. This year in spring, we are really proud that we were able to have 55 groups, which is most number of groups we've ever had across 7 fields for over 6,500 hours of practice of play, largely allocated in hour to 90-minute long increments. If you can do it, I give a big shout out to our team member, Kiera Boyle, who helps put together a very complicated schedule across all of it for it. Certainly, we will continue to refine it over the times, and there is no guarantee for any group over season. We do try to really look at the applications we have to make our the best choices we can in sort of the fairest way possible. But we are excited for the number of groups we have, particularly Gansevoort Field has proven enormously popular, as folks may know. Moving on to
One note on that.
Yes.
Need more.
In terms of operations, and Rob, you can chime in if there's anything that I screw up here. We were able to replace one of our barrier 1 gates. Those are the entry and exit pieces, which folks here don't know, but is extraordinarily important for our team and our ability to do it as long as for events. We are, State DOT is continuing, obviously they repaved the bikeway last year, of which we have gotten an extraordinary number of compliments. But I will remind you all, it is under State DOT and not Hudson River Park Trust property, nor is it administered by Hudson River Park Trust. But I will take a compliment. They are working on paver repairs. throughout it. And our team has been trying to help identify some places where that has been needed to do for it, given our sort of high visibility on it. We talked about some of our caution signs for folks who are going over the railings, and others, if you see them, they are orange and will be mounted, hopefully in some of the high visibility locations. Rob, just anything?
That's pretty
We're
good.
good, all right. Water will start going on. We obviously already have requests. I'm sure you were not start to hear when you go outside. As soon as someone can go running, we have a request for why our water fountains aren't working. It's because it may freeze again next week, just to be clear. They are, but it is an enormous job for our miles and miles of irrigation and pipes that have to be done and checked section by section. Somewhere in the first half of April, we'll be doing it on a rolling basis, including our splash park features and our newest one at the science playground. Our plants at the Chris Street Fountain were, I'm told, a success. We haven't heard much from you guys on them, but we were able to dress it up for the past 2 years. So in part with Rob's, we had some holiday lighting in December, which is exciting. And I'm going to move on here to public safety. Chris, do you have anything you want to add before I plow into what's on there?
I think that's.
Okay, so we talked about Code Blue at a previous meeting. This is when PEP, as part of a citywide effort, the enforcement agencies work to approach folk, double check areas where folks are homeless are known to congregate, particularly in areas when there is under cold temperatures and health risks as a result of it. Between November and March 6th, PEP conducted 964 Code Blue checks this year, and so which has been good. We are deeply appreciative. They are hooked into, and this is where PEP does it, being part of the city system works. They are hooked into the larger citywide support network. So the folks who are getting the check in Union Square or Washington Square Park or Central Park are the same, getting the same level of service here in Hudson River Park, and the same continuum of services that the city offers with interlocking city agencies, obviously DHS, Homeless Services, Department of Health, and others. We certainly had some snow operations. I believe this is we were touched the largest section of our snow budget that we have in years, Rob?
Couple years now, yeah.
Yeah. For it, our teams are out, when many folks are hiding inside, our teams are out doing their best to do all the snow for it. For dog rules, certainly in the winter we see an increase in folks who violate our dog rules. It's something that we don't like to see. It is particularly a significant safety concern to have off-leash dogs in the park. We have our sandwich between a incredibly fast-moving, heavily used highway. I have personally intercepted dogs who are off-leash, who are making a bolt across the bikeway when I have been coming up it. I had more than once, and while I reported last fall that PEP was able to successfully rescue a dog off of Pier 62, that is not often how that story ends. So it is a particularly dangerous one. PEP has been doing an effort right now, particularly when they have fewer incidents of other folks, other rule breaking or other issues in the park, to be able to do some dog enforcement. If you hear some grumbling and complaints, I have heard them as well already from folks who have gotten approached. They are our standing rules. Chris, do you want to talk about the e-bike stuff for the precincts, where that stands?
Yeah, so basically at the fall of last year, we started trying to do joint operations with NYPD on the bikeway. Those kind of died out for the winter. I've already been in touch. We'll start in early April. We'll start with the first precinct and go back. We did it with the 6th precinct, 10th precinct. First precinct, we set up a few last year that got canceled, but they'll be first this year in April. Basically pick points along the bikeway that, have entrances to the park, and we'll basically set up all those, I'd say roadblock there, but a funnel that people pass through, and they'll see, what kind of bikes they're on. Are they legal? Are they gasoline powered? Maybe summonses will be in order for, gasoline powered. They'll pass out literature and just try to educate people on bike safety and, crossing the path and so forth. Some people, they don't accept that there's red lights along the bikeway, or I'd have to tell all of you all the issues we could come in down the bikeway, but
You're gonna concentrate on gasoline powered, but not like a city bike, e-bike, even though they're not legal, you're good. How are you gonna pick and choose?
Well, just like the e-bikes and the pedal assist, it's a difficult area. So on an e-bike, are they wearing a helmet? Are they driving it safely? We really don't want to get into without an additional factor, get into that, but the gasoline powered ones are easy. The road vehicles, you know, with license plates or that are eligible for license plates, those are easier and clearer. But I understand what you're saying with the e-bikes, but it's at least for us, NYPD, who's with us, may take a different tack depending on what's going on. You know, they were looking to necessarily confiscate some of the gasoline powered ones last time.
I think one of the pieces just to add on that it was kind of some of Chris's earlier conversations with the NYPD is that particularly the e-bikes, it is legal if you are to have an be on your e-bike up until you cross the crosswalk and enter the bikeway, and that is for them. The disparity, I think, is a challenge, and so whereas it is certainly illegal to have a gasoline powered on the sidewalk or on the bikeway or anything else like that, the concept, the sense of responsibility, I think, for it it's a little more difficult. But certainly, I appreciate. I think everyone here appreciates Chris for continuing to keep this effort alive with our precincts to do it.
I don't know how it's gonna come out, but Sam Schwartz is almost done with his survey of this topic in Central Park. But when it's done, it's been a year. You can maybe look at it and see what they come up with. I don't know, just so you know, it'll be released fairly soon.
Certainly, I again, I will say, I look forward to hearing about state DOT's review of how that went down in Central Park. Because ultimately, they are the ones who set the rules on the bikeway. Well, Chris does to try to pull folks in, but it is ultimately not ours.
Was it a program today? There were two policemen about 50th Street, were on the bike lane. And we were slowed down by traffic, but they were just saying nicely to us, please remember to stop for the red lights. I don't know if it was more of a program or there were more people.
I wasn't aware of that up there. That would be the Midtown North Precinct. I'd be surprised if it was just that. They may have been there for something else.
I mean, they may have been looking for electric vehicles or, you know, illegal vehicles.
They may have been looking, there may have been someone.
I don't know where there were more, but they were just, you know, using even the free time to tell people complying bicycles, just to remind them that they're there and those what the rules are.
I'll reach out to Midtown North and see what was going on there.
Okay, I have three more topics and I'm gonna keep it moving. As previously reported, the discussion about the challenges and opportunities of Pier 76 begun last summer has continued on. I invited everyone on the advisory council to join CB4's January 11th Waterfront and Parks Environment Committee meeting when we returned again for a second meeting with additional discussion on February 8th. I sent everyone the link if you want to view it. I know some folks who are on the advisory council who are on Zoom now, and others were able to listen in and participate as part of the discussion. CB4 approved a letter at its most recent meeting for it, providing some additional feedback above and beyond some of what we were able to generate as part of the Pier 76 task force. And so I think sort of our next step is going to be continuing the discussion, particularly with some of our local elected officials for it. I'll pause there because I think there are some questions.
I'll introduce you. I don't know if anybody read Tom's article, but he went on the news. And I don't know if you want to summarize that for us, or I don't know how much conversation we're able to get into today.
You know, I'm old school and I apologize for looking into the past. So I did. The original call funded project, the department was done in 1990, started in 2008. That was both times. We have 4 business improvement districts on the other side of the road that contribute nothing to the park. We have Hudson Yards, which is 26 million square feet, doesn't give anything to the park except a lot of people and keep the health up there. Why are we still looking at exploiting the park to create revenue rather than looking at creating a special assessment district? And because Friends is a great organization, but you know, I don't know what your annual budget is or what your shortfall is projected to 2000 for April 1st. But I know last year they donated $2 million to us. Business improvement district generated $13 million. This was projected in 2008. So, and here we're thinking about putting up after 76 and rating to 40. And perhaps both of those should be either minimized or 76, since community zone 4 has next to nothing in terms of large open space. Pier 76 might be kept a public open space if you can generate revenue somewhere else. And in 2020, I'll shut up after this, Paul Weisbrod did an array of different revenue sources. And the park improvement district came up high in the liability, in local funding, in long-term support, came out low because the note was cannot be established or controlled by the trust. I don't think we're all worried about what's controlled. We're worried about what can contribute to sustaining. So I'm wondering if AFE could maybe at the next advisory council meeting, we could really understand what the FY24 budget is, what your projected shortfall is, what Friends is anticipating in terms of their programs for the year that might fill a shortfall, and whether we should look at the possibility of other sources of revenue rather than, in my mind, totally insecure the program.
Is that possible? We can review the budget next month?
We are happy to come and talk about the budget. We also, we are happy to discuss. I would encourage folks who haven't seen the both presentation and discussion at the CB4 meeting. We talked about that this issue was addressed directly there as well. So I encourage everyone, folks, to be able to go do it also. But we're happy to come, and we can sort of define what folks want with the amount of time for next meeting.
Not to be the dead horse, but we are stakeholders saying that we have to go to a community board forum to understand what's happening. When we represent 50 organizations and elected officials, it seems somewhat pushing things to a narrow bottleneck. Perhaps we could get a presentation as the advisory council at some time in the future.
But I said yes. We don't set the advisory council agendas. So if they would like to ask us to do it, we have said yes. I'm happy to do it. It has become a request for the advisory council.
Please send your request to the current chair of the advisory.
And what is going to be representative? You know?
That's an excellent question. I don't have an answer for that, unfortunately. I know the chair, we have a relatively new chair. She's only 3 months in. So I flagged this for her as soon as it was known. I know she sort of is working on a short list, so we hope to have that to you guys ideally before the next meeting.
And I think it'd be helpful if CB4 weighed in on the letter that they wrote, rather than doing it now when we're out of time, but that might be a good item that we have.
I will be happy to relate that.
All right, thank you. Anything else, Robert?
I have 2 more items. Pier 40 Marine Operator, as I reported previously, we received 9 proposals to our RFP last August. New York Water Tours, and we are currently in the process of negotiating the concession agreement for it. What New York Water Tours has selected. We are going to encourage them to try to come to an upcoming AC meeting. We hope that everyone here will join them in welcoming New York Water Tours to the park community overall. Certainly, we can have a discussion with membership folks also on that. So they're going to be docking 6 vessels on the north and west side of Pier 40, offering sightseeing and meal cruises, general ticketing plus events, very similar to sort of some of the hornblower pieces of it. They will also be using some of the interior spaces at Pier 40 for processing, sales, marketing, sort of stuff that is already a kind of continuous use. I think that's it, unless there are any questions on that one.
They came to CB2 and we didn't object for being there, and it seemed like they were going to be a good operator and following the same rules that we've always been asking about. No music at all when it's docking.
No dockside music. We have limited the hours of operations where most cruises are going to certainly be back at a certain time, except on sort of certain pre-authorized occasions, New Year's Eve. There are similar prohibitions about playing loud music as they approach the dock for it. And some of those kind of good neighbor pieces that we have for it.
I have a question.
Yep.
How many vessels did Hornblower?
I think Hornblower had, maybe it might be 4, and then I think maybe Cornucopia had 2 additional there. So it's for a total of 6. Yeah, for it. And it's really about the question is, I don't think generally less about actually the number of vessels as it is the size of the vessel, right? It's a linear feet of what's available and what fits. Smaller obviously fit more vessels in the same area. Cornucopia in particular was enormous.
So one of my question is at the end, when they come back, what kind of pedestrian management are they doing for transportation and things like that? That always, it's not on the way in because people get dropped off more or less individually. It's the way out that tends to be
A problem. So it is certainly,
wild.
it is one that we has certainly, I know the trust, we had a lot of conversations with about, they are responsible of getting their passengers not just off of the boats and into the park, but out of the park at the end of the night. It is an important piece of us for it. As part of our conversations and due diligence, things like that. They have been operating over in CB3 at the DOT facility over there, in which they are not the only operator. That's kind of more of a pickup drop-off situation. So we actually spoke with some of the neighbors who live across the street as part of our due diligence about it to try to see if there are any problems, anything else. And my hope and belief is that we seem to have found someone who is a generally very good operator. It is a key concern for us. Nobody on our team, and I'm looking at Rob and Chris here, we don't want middle of the night phone calls because there's a problem. Robert Wynn on our team doesn't want middle of the night phone calls because there's a problem. This is a real problem for PEP and others when there is a problem. So it is something that we are actively looking at.
And my second question on this, so thank you very much. That's a major thing for safety and et cetera, is are they going to be doing any kind of improvements at all on Pier 40, even if it's as much as painting the inside on the ways to their ship, the opportunities that are there?
I don't know about improvements to say the interior pieces of the pier. I'm sure any commercial operator, they will need to do pieces to help make it their own, and whatever the hornblower has left with, pictures ripped off the walls is probably not what they're gonna want to maintain.
I was actually thinking a really nice coat of paint around the sports field. I'm just a little biased on
So
that. I think
that
that's
is
some
outside of their premises by a significant margin. I agree with you on the painting of that. Something with as large as Pier 40, even paint is
Let's
not.
get rolling. I think we should invite them here after they've been operating. 2 months,
We certainly we'll certainly encourage them to
We
attend.
should move on. You got one more?
I got one more. The last one is, I just want to make sure to raise for folks, Battery Park City Resiliency Project. They're continuing to advance the more detailed design for the section that will affect the southern reach of the park. Certainly, I think it's overall, Tammy may have more information on that. As previously we've talked about, we are pleased at the design that is no longer running along the bikeway immediately adjacent to the park, that is crossing near Chambers. Instead, we are continuing to work with them. I just want to with BPA on their design processes to understand the extent of constructions and potential impacts of the park and sort of that in that immediate interaction.
You happen.
Sorry, I'll be fast. Is there any discussion yet about the need to change the act, or are they trying to do something through some kind of agreement?
Because
The southern border.
The
Southern border.
a family member has raised it with Battery Park City several times, and they have said, we'll let you know. And we haven't heard anything. I don't know if anybody hears from Assembly Paul's office, but
Remains under
just
discussion.
raising the question.
Remains under discussion. Is what I am able to say.
Okay, well, the sooner that the state legislators could know, it sounds like is there a plan to do something without changing the act, is what I'm reading from them and from what I'm hearing right
I say it remains under discussion.
now. All right, well, I will take that back.
Well, that might be really a public question and concern raised also by Community Board 1 at every single meeting. They are presenting on the next Monday, the 18th, to the Environmental Protection Committee. So they will be presenting details for what they call Reach One, which is from North Moore all the way down through the end of Chambers at the bottom of the southern tip of the lot line for the trust. So at that point, it'll clearly show, or we are anticipating that it will show the details of the crossing, which is behind, behind Stuyvesant on the north side. So not at the crosswalk of Chambers, but deeper in at the very edge, bottom of the park. But also the build out that's supposed to go from the back of the bikeway and the bottom end for where the moorings are to the end of Chambers Street. By the water, that we understand there was some kind of build out that was gonna happen.
Barbara says under discussion.
Yeah.
I personally have no additional updates on that, but I look forward to tuning in on Monday.
Yeah, so this could be a little bit out of time, but I want to give Friday an opportunity just to talk, just a summary about swimming in the Hudson. There's been some Pools Plus conversations going back and forth, and we obviously can't do a deep dive today, but something that, you know, we want to discuss likely in the future, so.
Yeah, so, well, thanks, and I'll be brief, so, as folks know, and, you know, obviously this group has talked about it quite a bit, you know, swimming is a recreational activity for which there is enormous unmet demand, and, you know, I don't think that's a secret to anybody involved in public life in New York City. There's an opportunity to provide swimming in our open waters in the Hudson River and the harbor. And, you know, because of the improvements in water quality, thanks to billions of dollars of public investment and ratepayer money, you know, we can actually conceive of doing that. So we, through the Harbor and Estuaries Program's Public Access Work Group, have been trying to push that conversation forward in a variety of ways. And we commissioned a study that Daniel shared. That's, you know, it's a little bit in the weeds, but one of the issues that came up from many of our partners at Riverkeeper and at Plus Pool and others was that the permit, I should say New York State Department of Health, was that the permitting process that the Department of Health has to go through to allow for swimming is pretty cumbersome, doesn't allow, you know, sort of envisions people swimming on a nice sandy beach, doesn't envision kind of swimming in an urban setting or in places where the water quality might meet, might meet public health standards, except after a heavy rainfall. So we worked with a consultant and Plus Pool to put out this report. It calls for a number of things, including clarifying the state and city permitting process. I'm happy to say through sort of a parallel process that Plus Pool was doing, a lot of that permitting has actually been clarified, and there's now new provisions both at the city and the state to address that. And I know folks are probably familiar with the governor's New York Swim Initiative, which has sort of put a lot of money into not just the opportunity to open bathing beaches throughout the state, but also to do really critical things like provide swim lessons to kids and hire lifeguards. So that's all kind of by way of background. Again, the report that was included, you know, it's a pretty narrow focus. So I just want to say that, you know, I personally feel like having Hudson River Park explore this in a serious way and sort of in addition to the work that's been done to date makes a lot of sense. You know, it's something that this committee could be an active part in. I say that with all due respect to Robert and Rob and all the enormous headaches that this will cause for the operations of the park.
Thank you.
So, you know, again, it's not, you know, it's a real thing, you know, I mean, I think we want to do it in a responsible way. But should we think about it, you know, given that it's a limited resource, you know, I have to say, last thing will be, you know, this park among all the parks in New York State probably has the most demand and the most amount of resources to attempt to address this. Maybe not the most land, but so, you know, I guess I would encourage a further conversation.
Well, you know where I'm going on this, I think. CB1 stuck a big stake out with CB3 since we don't have anything as amazing as this anywhere on the east side or at quite frankly, enough open public space, open opportunities. We don't have any free pools, public pools at all. So we really would like something on the east side where we don't have an estuarium and a sanctuary to worry about yet, although they keep telling us that they're gonna make an ecology area. Let's see. But just north of the Brooklyn Bridge Beach, we are desperate to have an amenity like this.
You're getting there, right? You're getting.
Well, that's why I'm really glad you're here at the moment. Because my understanding is that that potentially would go to the Bronx and to Uptown or to the west side and not to us downtown, even though we've been.
I might have said it's going to you, but let me check. I haven't heard that.
Yeah, my understanding is they're doing the feasibility study on the east side. I don't want to speak for Plus Pool, but that's certainly, and again, I'm not saying this should be a Plus Pool facility or that we should get in the way of the lower, you know, the east side of Manhattan, you know, securing access to something you guys really want. You know, I mean, I think it's just something for the park to explore.
There's other things other than, there's just swimming in the river.
Yeah, I mean, we testified when they were reviewing it, to be able to say that it's sort of ridiculous that the island of Manhattan has no ability to be in the water, period. Go 20 miles north, 10 miles north, not very different water, just saying. And you can go in
You're
the,
gonna have my little beach.
Yeah.
Don't forget.
Sounds like a conversation to pick up. Or over at Farm Tom's beer.
That'll help.
So, we're not gonna adjourn the meeting, we're gonna move the meeting over to.
when is the next meeting?
It's up to you.
Oh, no, oh.
Usually it's the second Tuesday of the month.
We will send out a notice to folks when we have confirmed the next date and time and location of the next meeting after this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure, we have time for one public question.
Robert very generously responded to a phone call about how just a regular citizen can just kind and participate. And I came in here like Marcy and stuff and gave him an earful, which was, but it's because of my passion about one particular issue, which is the health, which is an issue for many, many people that's been lingering for 25 years now, has been slow walked beyond any kind of notion of incrementalism we could possibly imagine. So my question is how I've gone through all the community boards. For the last 7 years, I've interviewed park users, passersby, employees of the park, electeds, the press, anybody else. And even employees at the health park, who of course offered to feed me out. And to me, the history is amazing, and the most striking event was the 2007 Supreme Court settlement that Hudson River Friends won against the trust, mandating the complete closure of the health by 2015. The whole discussion was finished. All the reasons why it should be closed were settled. The New York Supreme Court had weighed in on this. The trust, I would think, would be obliged to obey this. They did close the tourist flights. That's difficult. But in my mind, they stonewalled until 2013. At the very last minute of the state assembly, pushed through an amendment that nullified the settlement and did not allow this advisory council enough time to even review this change. And I think that was an action, an executive action by the CEO of the trust and should not be taken as legal. I think that the settlement is the precedent. And I don't think more studies need to be done. I don't think we need to wait until the Gateway Tunnel project is finished. I think those are all distractions while we have this basically, this chain link gas chain.
Yeah, so this is like a agenda item, it's usually, I gave you a couple minutes,
Okay.
but I know that Tom's working on a FOIL
I
request.
already got the first response.
And this is a topic that we will continue to discuss, and I recommend that you come and join us when we have more time to discuss it.
So how do we organize it? Is it organized as an agenda item?
It would be down as an agenda item, but it's not on the agenda today.
No, I know that, but how does it get on?
We discuss issues that come up through emails from our advisory council membership. We have an executive committee meeting. In the executive committee, there's 6 members. Discuss it, and there'll actually be elections for a new executive committee meeting next month. Tracy, you had a question?
If you add this to a future agenda, I believe Assemblymember Simone and Senator Hoyle will have a bill about.
I'm familiar with all the bills that I've written.
We have one, we have them in the city council too.
Yes, I know all the bills.
Whoever does the agenda, maybe flag those offices to speak on.
I feel a lot, I feel a
And
lot of.
with that, we have a motion to adjourn the meeting and pick up
Okay.
50 yards.
Thank you all.
Well, it's here. Then you're, it's called the Harlem Hop.